Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today is November 26th, 2024. Just to put that out there, because a lot of stuff is moving very quickly. A lot of stuff is changing. I never know what's going on anymore.
And it will be published on Monday the 2nd. So you're hearing this in December.
I know. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And this one is kind of a rough one, I would say. It's so content warning for sexual abuse, misogyny, and harassment. We're not going to get too deep into anything, but it's not great. I would say see our recent Manosphere episode because this is related. And this is largely from a recent report that came out from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue that got a lot of attention. It came out pretty soon after the election here in the US. So now that we're a couple of weeks out from the 2024 US presidential election, we did want to do a brief check-in on the spike in online harassment women and girls are experiencing. Since the election featured a woman presidential candidate and a lot of the focus was on women's rights and reproductive rights, the results fed into this narrative that this means women shouldn't have rights at all. So here are some key takeaways from that report. In the weeks before and after the election, online calls to repeal the 19th Amendment granting women the right to vote shot up, as did calls to go back to the kitchen. The use of Your Body, My Choice skyrocketed, and the original Nick Fuentes video of that phrase has been viewed over 35 million times. There have been multiple reported instances of boys chanting that at girls in schools. Fuentes later went on to add, quote, "I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank men for saving this country from stupid bitches who wanted to destroy the world to keep abortion." Yep. In the days after the election, there were videos of men dressed in MAGA gear harassing women on college campuses, basically telling them to go home. You don't belong here. Online harassment was being used to force women offline, especially in high school or college spaces. Reports of online threats of rape have increased. So far, platforms have largely failed to mark these as violations, and there have been calls to form rape squads. One tweet that said, quote, "Women threatening sex strikes like LMAO as if you have a say," received over 10 million views. I'm going to have to come back to this, but this has started a whole conversation on asexuality that I'm just going to have to address at a later date. There's the ongoing rise of sexualized deepfakes used to target and silence women. That was happening before, and now it's really shot up. According to a study out of 2023, a whopping 98% of deepfakes were pornographic in nature, and 99% of them were of women. And this has made revenge porn easier, which is also a problem we need to come back and talk about because it's changed. The use of stalkerware increased by 78% during the pandemic, and this technology is often used against women. And there are continued conversations about weaponized data collection when it comes to things like abortion. So how are these companies going to use this data they're collecting on you, against you? How can the government contact these companies, work with these companies to use it against you? Is a big problem. But like all of it comes together to say that right now it's really women and girls are facing a lot of very specific threats and targeted harassment online. And it's unfortunately, because I think another report I read was saying it was talking about like how companies do or don't do enough to moderate.
Right.
our communities, just online communities, don't do enough to moderate. And one of the points they made is that if someone from a marginalized community experiences harassment, unfortunately, they're so used to it, they don't leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so having this like uptick in all of this harassment, they're not sure what's going to happen, because this report did come out pretty soon after the election. But it was designed, like a lot of these things they did identify was designed to get women off of social platforms, off of learning campuses, like just to make sure that it's known in their mind they are the ones that have this power. The country has spoken. Go home. And it has global implications. The report also talked about some of the things we saw in other countries soon after. I think one of the big examples they gave was in Japan. The far right was talking about forced hysterectomies.
Mm-hmm.
So they were saying like, this is going to really have an influence throughout the world. And it goes back to what we were talking about in that Manosphere episode, because there has already been instances in other countries where it's clear this influence has had this hugely negative impact. And I do think a lot of it has to do with like the pandemic and being online more and being in your bubble, perhaps, and the way media is set up and how a lot of podcasts are free, like a lot of things like that. But it just, I hate it. I just hate it.
Right.
I think it's terrible.
It's true. It is terrible. Part of this conversation has a lot to do with the lack of implications when you're face to face. There was a TikTok video. I talk a lot about TikTok. I'm also chronically online, in which a woman talked about the fact that she and her friend, they're both probably, I think they said late 20s, early 30s, were being harassed by a bunch of teenagers. And they were 15, 16-year-old boys. And they were being harassed, and they were just not paying attention. And then one of the boys had the audacity to say something like, I guess the way we can get our attention is if we rape her, or we should rape them, and said it out loud. And that's when the girl turned around and got in his face. And he was so shocked that she came back at him, that they came back to apologize to her. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. She's like, I will beat your ass if you say this to another person. If I ever hear you, like all these things, because they really, I think, forgot that there can be a reaction. And so being chronically online, not like them, not like me necessarily, but they forgot there can be real implications to this conversation. And they said something that they would have written out loud. And I feel like that's a big conversation that we are not having enough, especially with the younger generations. Not that I'm having you young people don't understand. They just really forget the interaction that happens, when the reactions that can happen when you're no longer online and you're in present space. And there are those that, like, the differences are this, and they forget about the real life people from that other side. Nick Fuentes is actually another great example of saying this stupid shit online and then getting doxxed. Do I encourage that? No. I'm not saying that I'm for that, but he forgot that there were real consequences. So this MFer essentially got freaked out and then started calling out everybody, be like, leave me alone. I'm at my mama's house. Why you gotta harass? Hello, bro. You said some things that threatened women. Yeah. And so the reaction was very visceral, and you're getting that reaction. And it's kind of that level of, again, with the podcasting, younger generations, they forget the humanity part of this. There are real people who are angry. There are people who are hurt. There are people who are scared. And they're going to react out of that in your power play. And you don't know what that looks like. And I think also there was another conversation I've seen I've seen where, and this could be made up, I don't know, where supposedly conservative women are also getting told your body, my choice. And that's making them upset because they're like, no, I'm one of you. And they go to people to be like, help me defend myself. They're like, no, this is not that no one should be threatened and no one should be told I'm going to, do these things to you in any way whatsoever. So I'm not talking about that, but in the actual, like, you voted for this. This type of conversation, this was what you were like kikiing about when you said, I'm going to support this other side, which people make mistakes. Hopefully people will grow with it. But these are the real life consequences of what is happening. And unfortunately for you, you're in the same boat as we are because you're identifying as a woman. Point blank.
Yeah. I have seen a lot of interesting discourse about that. But we're going to be talking about this more in other episodes, but I do think during the pandemic, we were all so isolated. We were online all the time. And I think for some people, it was already, like, I told the story of when I was walking home from the 2016 election and I was getting chanted at horrible things by a group of young boys. So it was already a problem, but I think that because we were so online during the pandemic, that it just exacerbated a lot of things.
Right. I mean, also, white men are already at power, so this only empowers them more because they know there's less consequences for them. So they were ready. They were excited. Yeah. They felt this way, and now they are not just bold. They think they've been like given this power, not just power, because like what we've seen thus far is those who are supposed to be the bad players, those that we are supposed to be like, he's a bad guy, obviously don't trust him and he should not be successful. There's no consequences for their bad actions, even when they hurt people. Like that is the story. And so, of course, they were just waiting for just a small amount of encouragement because they were already in power anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Happy December, everybody.
Happy December. The final countdown, as I'm calling it. Well. Yeah. There is definitely a lot more to unpack with this, but I just thought this report got so much attention, we should cover it. So if you have any thoughts about this, if you have anything else you think we should talk about, please let us know. You can email us at stephaniemomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We're on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.